All right, all right. Welcome to the fourth episode of the New York Power Hour. Tonight we are joined by not Jeff and definitely not Kim, but also Peter and the Prince Man himself, Ram. Welcome to the show tonight, guys. How are you doing?
Doing fantastic. How you guys doing?
Doing well, doing well. Sorry, St. John's fans. I'm repping my alma mater here tonight, so I gotta
I'm
I gotta
feeling
root on my
good, man.
guys.
I'm glad we've got the ability to swap out one token Yankee fan for another. I think it's a great move that when we've got Kenny unavailable, we can just go to the ranks and say, "Hey, you feel like being the token Yankee fan on a New York Power Hour?" And we've got guys chomping at the bits to jump up and do this. And I say that with love, Luke. I'm really glad to have you on here. It's really nice to have you joining us here for a little bit of fun. So thank you.
No, I'm looking forward to it. And like I said, I've been looking forward to this a while. I'm glad I had some time to hop on the show tonight. And I'm looking forward to get Kenny in here with me too. And we get a 2v2 action Yankees versus Mets here. But I'll try to hold my own tonight.
Yeah, don't let the Bobby Witt Jr. jersey fool you. Luke is a diehard Yankee, diehard Ranger, and I don't know. Are you a Knick guy too, or?
I'm not a big basketball guy.
Okay.
I'm a Seton Hall basketball.
I was
fan.
getting ready to say on the college scene, it's across the river. So.
Yeah. So I appreciate the no St. John's tonight, and I appreciate it if no one wears any Villanova stuff.
Do we even have any Villanova fans in the server, in our Discord server?
I mean, if you're a Knicks fan, I feel like you're kind of a villain.
I feel like you have to be.
I do think that like the Nova Knicks has got some people too, because I've got some guys from like Pennsylvania who are torn because obviously they'll want to root for the 76ers, but the core of Nova's really top team is all on the Knicks there. So it's one of those things where it must be a tough one. And on the flip side of things that aren't tough, by the way, I want to shout out whatever the hell is going on Peter's clothing or screen over there. Are you wearing David Stearns, or did you print out David Stearns to
It's just
or is that
printing them out.
I thought you were wearing it. I feel like I'm at the Oscars where it's like, and Peter, what are you wearing today? And it's like, oh, this is a classic 2025 David Stearns creation. That you've got him printed all over your clothes.
I mean, what can I say? He's the man. It's not easy to take over a team that's as historically dysfunctional as the Mets and, turn them into a potential, I'll say potential because it's still very early, juggernaut.
Yeah. I can't really throw any shade here about spending money because, being a Yankees fan, never had any issues spending money. But I mean, it is super easy to be a GM when you have deep pockets with ownership. So, not to discredit David Stearns or anything, but when you can sign Juan Soto to one of the largest contracts in MLB history, actually the largest contract in MLB history, it's pretty easy to be a GM for a team.
I mean, you say that like he didn't have a lot of success with in Milwaukee with the Brewers. He had plenty of that, and Juan Soto is the largest contract in I think sports when you don't include endorsements and some of those soccer deals. But the Mets payroll this year is still less than it was last year, which is shocking.
Yeah,
it is actually shocking. Some good news for your Mets. It looked like you're going to get Jeff McNeil and Francisco Alvarez back at the end of the week.
Yeah, I mean, it's the rich get richer. Luckily for us, the team has been holding it together. Sanger hit much more than I think any Mets fan expected him to. So he'll definitely be missed, but it's nice to have our boy Alvarez back here soon.
Yeah, I'm a big Francisco Alvarez guy. I've talked about this off air a lot with Ash about the idea that I feel like the pitching staff and Alvarez have a great relationship, and there were some stats that showed last year that just overall team ERA was actually stronger when Alvarez was the receiving end of the pitchers. But for me, that's crazy because now, if that's something that can still work, if we've still got a guy in the battery who's going to make the pitchers a little bit stronger, the Mets pitching in a way has made absolutely no sense to most of us here. The guys that they're getting success out of, You know, like we're looking at the bullpen side, like Huskar Brazaban and Max Chronic. Griffin Canning is producing for the Mets. Clay Holmes is starting and producing for the Mets. If it gets better from here, you know, if you've got Manaea coming back and Montes is coming back to a healthy Francisco Alvarez receiving them, it is very difficult, especially and saying this coming off a 7-0 homestand. It's very difficult not to be a little bit excited about what's going on this side of the bridge.
Yeah, you mentioned the Clay Holmes, and you know you see the signing in the offseason, and I'm like, what are we doing here? You know, he struggled so much down the stretch. Yeah, I know. Yeah, it's all David Stearns. You know, he struggled down the stretch for the Yankees. He lost the closer job. And then all of a sudden they turn around and they say, yeah, we're going to turn this guy into a starter. You know, we're just going to have him go out. We're going to have him go out and start games and have him pitch six innings, and he couldn't even handle 1 inning for the Yankees. But I mean, it looks like big brain move from David Stearns here. I mean, he's looked phenomenal to start the season. What is it? I'm looking at his stats right now: 3.16 ERA, 25 innings pitched, 34 strikeouts in 25 innings pitched with. You know, whip's a little high, but dude looks great on the mound starting right now.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's wrong to say that he's doing better than really even the most optimistic Mets fan thought he would do at the beginning of the year. But it's more than just him. Like, there's all these guys are stepping up. Max Krennic today, you know, kind of came in on an emergency role after Diaz went out. He held it down, you know, and it's just a total team effort. You can't point to a single guy and be like, well, he's a problem or he's a problem. Like, everybody's doing their part and everyone's pitching really well.
Krennic pitched again today.
Yes.
Wow. Yeah, so he did again today.
He pitched two plus on Monday.
Yep.
And then came. Wow. No, that's
and Braza doing this with regularity too. This is I'm gonna have a piece out at some point on the Substack with Ash sometime soon about, and I love Stearns, right? But Jeremy Hefner has got to be, in my opinion, you know, top 3, maybe top 5 at worst pitching coach in the league right now. I know the Mets have a pitching lab, but at some part it starts to become a little bit undeniable that he's got to be given some credit here. Right, the Mets have invested in a young pitching coach. I mean, I watched Hefner pitch for the Mets not too long ago, maybe 10 years ago. This is not a guy like the Dan Worthen days who's like 60 and 70 and is just bringing, you know, the Elden Ring knowledge from the 1800s to teach a pitcher. Jeremy Hefner was pitching, and we all saw him not too long ago. And so for me, I think he's just adapted to this fresh, new, analytical-driven understanding of what the Mets are doing. There was talk about it on the broadcast the other day that Sean Manaea was discussing that at the end of spring training, he held a meeting. He kind of called all the pitchers together and basically brought them in a room and just said, listen, what do you have questions on? Let's figure it out. Let's work on this together. And Hefner was a big part of this. And I think that's something that gets overlooked. And Stearns made a lot of good signings, but I feel like there's got to be a lot of coordination with Hefner on the side of saying, do you think you can do something with this person? Do you think you can unlock something? Because they've been able to do that with guys of different potential, different pedigree, different pitch style, and it's working. It's working for a lot of them, and I don't know how, because I've been watching the Mets for a while. This is not something that I'm used to.
And two things on that. I mean, it's not something you're used to. I mean, you talk about the Mets from like 10 years ago, and it was develop guys out of the farm system for pitching, right? Now it's I'm taking veterans and I'm like you said, unlocking the most potential out of them, right? Quintana last year, Manaea, and I think you bring up a really good point too. And I watch a lot of Kansas City broadcasts, and what they talk about with the success they've had in their starting pitching last year was the 5 guys sit down after every start and talk about what did I do right, what did I do wrong, and they're all communicating with one another on how as a group they can improve. And I think that's super important for a pitching staff, and it sounds like the Mets are doing the exact same thing.
Yeah,
another guy that's done pretty well for you guys is Tylor Megill. Like, I know, like, we've talked a lot about him, but he had a pretty good outing yesterday as well.
Big drip.
McGill
he his ERA is under 2 this year so far this year. I know earlier I called for him to be in the bullpen, but if he keeps this up, even with Manaea and Montas coming up, you can't send him down to the bullpen. He deserves.
It's weird for me to have this kind of art, because I openly have said in the Discord on everywhere that we could record it that I think Megill should be a guy in the pen, and then I just watched him throw 5 shutout and dominate the Phillies with 10 Ks, and that was
Monday.
That was
I
big
said
man
yesterday.
work.
Monday. Sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, but that was big man work. And I know these guys are looking a lot different. 5 shutout against the Phillies. The Phillies just came in and got stomped by the Mets. And one of the questions that came up post game today, it was a loaded question, so I don't love it, but it was the idea of, they were asking Carlos Mendoza, how does it feel going through this series and watching your team be better than the Phillies in every way? And that's rough. But when you think about it, in terms of this specific series in a nutshell, the Mets knocked some stuff out of the park. They were better hitting, better pitching. They looked like they were ready for the game. And of Megill too, I can't get over the fact that I watched that happen. I can be wrong about guys, and I'll tie that into something I was going to ask around here as a roundtable, because I know Peter's dying to talk about it, because Brett Baty's on the edge of the roster here. McNeil and Alvarez are coming back. With Alvarez, obviously the easy decision is to send Senger away and have Alvarez take his spot. But if McNeil gets brought back up to the active roster, who's the guy that you move off? And this was asked today to Mendoza. Did Brett Baty make this a more difficult decision for you with the way he's been hitting lately? I still think it should be Baty, and it's not because of any kind of Baty hate. I think it's one of those situations where that last guy on the bench is going to get just a few reps. And I think that if you really want to find out more what's going on with Brett Baty, then send him to AAA and let him start every day and get those consistent at-bats. Because if we keep him over like Jose Azocar, and he just sits there and he gets a plate appearance once every 4 games, you don't learn anything more about Brett. So send him down where he can get consistent playing time. I know it's almost a bad thing in that regard, but I'd rather you do that and let Azocar just be that last guy on the roster who comes in for defensive replacement here and there. I think it should be a no-brainer that Brett goes down in this case. I think he has the option. I'm pretty sure he has the option, which is why I'm saying that. Yeah, and that's why I think at the end of the day, for me, it's an easy decision. It's got to be Brett, but I'll throw it over to the super fan in the corner of my screen there, Peter. Do you have an argument against sending him? Do you prefer sending Jose, or do you kind of get what I mean here?
I do understand what you're saying, but I still believe that Baty deserves to stay up. To your point of him playing every day in the minors, he did that last year. Excuse me, he did that last year. We know the type of player Brett Baty is in the minors. We know how he does in spring training. It's the majors that he's yet to be tested on. He's been playing well these past 10 or so games. If when you call McNeil up in the minors, he's been playing center field some. You have Ronald. You have Acuna, who can also play some center field as well. There's no need to. I think you sent down. I'm slipping on his name. Please, Rand, save me.
Jose Azocar, right?
Yeah. Yes. I think you send him down, and then you just kind of have a cornucopia of players that can play center field. It's obviously not super ideal, but I think Baty deserves his chance to stay on the roster, and then we revisit it when Jose Siri comes back up in a little bit before the All-Star break.
Yeah, and for the viewers that are watching us tonight, let us know in the chat. Are you interested in seeing them send down Brett Baty, or are you interested in seeing the Mets demote somebody else to make room for Jeff McNeil? One thing that I did see was there was talk about McNeil getting some time in center field while he was on rehab. Did you guys see that?
Yeah.
Yes, he's been playing center field. He actually played center field again today. Peter just mentioned it too. Yeah. He's been rehabbing in center field with a patented Yankee torpedo bat, by the way, because nobody else has ever used a torpedo bat. A patented Yankee torpedo bat down there. Hit a home run, his first at bat with that torpedo bat. He's been playing center field. And I'll ask you this, Peter, based on what you were saying, because I don't necessarily disagree with what you're saying either. Who do the at-bats go away from them? Tyrone Taylor? Do you go ahead and do you throw McNeil in center field, and then you put Baty out there to replace that? Like, who loses the at-bats for Brett?
Well, it's going to have to be a rotation, which it kind of is now. The Mets still, even when they're winning games close late, they'll take Vientos out, for Baty or Acuna, whoever hasn't played, for that better defense. So I think it's going to be a rotation. But yeah, I guess Tyrone Taylor is going to have to be the guy to see a little bit less at bats. He was already supposed to be your fourth outfielder going into the season. So if there's any guy you're going to take bats away, it's going to be him. Although he has been playing well. He beat out that double play, which led to Lindor tying it on yesterday's game. So it's good to see everyone's making efforts.
And you mentioned getting the best of the Phillies, but right now the Mets are not just getting the best of the Phillies. Right now they're getting the best of the entire league. Right now with the best record in the entire sport right now at 18-7. So Met fans definitely have a lot to be happy about right now. Of 7.5 games right now on Atlanta, who a lot of experts were predicting to be the front runners in the NL East. So having a 7.5 game lead already at this point of the season is pretty good, and a good sign for the Met fans. What else do you guys got for us?
What are your feelings on being 7.5 behind the Mets?
We don't need to talk about it.
I like this Luke guy. I think I'm going to take it easy on him. I don't need to.
I'm still angry over Melvin Mora, you know.
But no, they're 12-1 at home. They just went through a 7-0 homestand. Again, and it's the Phillies. The Phillies were tied going into the division like before this series. This is some real man stuff. They're playing good baseball, and they're not backing down. They're finding ways to win. I mean, it's one of those things where if your team loses early on in April, you talk about the fact, hey, it's early, like you don't want to worry, but the win matters as much in April as it does in September. And we watched the Mets last year edge into the playoffs by 1 game. So when I sit there and I look at this and they're winning right now, I am very excited about the fact that, yes, I'd prefer the Mets to get hot at the end of the season, but man, it would be nice for them not to need to get hot at the end of the season and just to be able to actually have some room to breathe. Kenny interjecting with Jim Rivers, anybody?
Ash, you want to pull that one up on the screen and we can talk
about Jim Leyritz? Yeah.
We're not going to talk about Jim Leyritz today.
But
and how many sliders did Mark Wohlers throw to Jim Leyritz?
But going off what Ram said, Citi Field's the place to be right now. There was a sellout Saturday and Easter Sunday. There was either a sellout or close to a sellout today on a Wednesday 1:00 game. That doesn't happen. Last year, the Mets did not have good attendance, and Steve Cohen did kind of call out the fans. Granted, a little bit tone deaf, considering they were terrible most of last year. But everyone's going to Citi Field. It's a destination. I went to one of the second home game of the season. It's or even that early, the vibes are completely different at Citi Field. It's rocking. Everyone's paying attention. It's night and day from last year, and it's just so much fun. I joked about it. Being a Mets fan, when I signed up to be a Mets fan, it wasn't supposed to be this fun. And I know it's very early, and we're all kind of waiting for the shoe to drop, but you got to enjoy it while you can, because you don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, it's the Juan Soto effect. I mean, it's the Juan Soto. I mean, people want to show up and watch him play. I mean, he is a phenomenal athlete. And
the Yankee fan crediting Soto with the fun environment. I would be remiss to say otherwise, because we saw the effect last year. I mean, people. I would tune into games just to watch him taking at bat, followed by Judge. I mean, again, phenomenal athlete, phenomenal player. They talk about baseball as a team sport, and one player isn't gonna make or break. He's a guy that makes your team.
No, but you have a point. I mean, on the game that I went to, the second home game, he made a routine catch in right field, and he got a standing ovation. Everyone's super turned in. Everyone takes out their phones to record his at bats.
No, we talked about it in the Discord, and it's just like when the rumors of signing Juan Soto and what the cost was going to be, and people were like, why would you spend over $700 million? Your ROI is right there. I mean, you can market the hell out of this guy. people are going to show up at games. People are going to buy his merchandise. People are going to buy Mets things that are associated with Juan Soto because he's so attractive.
I do have a question for you though. Why did you lie to everyone? All Yankee fans lie to everybody that Juan Soto was a terrible defender. He saved the game today for the Mets defensively. I'm just why'd you guys lie to everybody?
He's so questionable out there. Again, he's such a great athlete, and sometimes when you're in the outfield and you're such a good athlete, it can be a little awkward. And there were a ton of moments at Yankee Stadium last year in right field where a ball would go to the fence, and you'd just be like, I don't know if he's going to get to it. I just don't know. But he really has a great arm out there too. So I mean, it makes up for kind of. I can't with Kenny right now.
Nah, that's what I'm laughing about too.
Yeah,
that's what I'm laughing about too.
Yeah, it's tough, but at the end of the day, and I hate to shift to the Yankees because I love the Mets talk here, but you missed out on Soto, and I really tip my cap to Cashman to pivoting and taking the pieces to fill the hole that Juan Soto was. I mean, you didn't get Juan Soto, but great, we go get Max Fried, we go get Bellinger, we go get Goldschmidt, who's maybe not going to fill the even half the hole there, but you go get Devin Williams, which we'll talk about later. But you take all of these pieces and that's what's going to make up for not being able to shell $700 million out to Juan Soto.
Yeah, and it's an interesting one in terms of the Juan Soto effect, literally, because if you look at, we've talked about this, and Peter, you mentioned the culture. Pete Alonso's drawing so much love right now from the Mets fans and from everything right now. The culture at Citi Field is really rocking when Pete comes up, and part of that is being a beneficiary of Juan. And since you've been so kind and gracious to us, Luke, I'll punt one over to you in a nice way. We're talking about successful first basemen in New York here. Let's talk about Ben Rice. Let's talk about leadoff hitter, first baseman Ben Rice and the Rice Man. And if Kenny was here, we'd be talking about the Mets for another 40 minutes. But you've been so cordial about everything that I feel like I've got to give you an opportunity to talk about Ben Rice and the fact that he's mashing home run after home run from the leadoff spot. Talk to me about how you feel about Ben Rice.
I mean, dude's a stud right now. Dude's a total stud right now. I was looking at this Baseball Savant because I love looking at Baseball Savant. And if you took his picture out and put Aaron Judge there, you couldn't tell the difference on the stats. I mean, everything was 90+ percentile for Ben Rice right now. I was texting John before the stream started, just kind of making that joke, and he texted me back and he goes, Ben Rice is who we all thought Greg Bird was going to be. And I don't know if you all remember Greg Bird, but Greg Bird was the greatest spring training hitter of all time. I mean, dude would come out of spring training 3 years in a row. It was like, dude mashed like 7 or 8 home runs. He's got the left-handed bat at Yankee Stadium, and then he would just turn around and be like, all right, yeah, he hit like 5 home runs this year.
Oh, so you guys have a Brett Baty too? Cool.
Yeah. And that was just satisfactory for it. So yeah, dude, I'm loving Ben Rice right now. Last season, he came out of nowhere. First game hits, smacked 3 home runs, and then just kind of tapered off. It looks like it's going to be a little bit more sustainable this year. And the crazy part is he's not playing the field. Like they're DHing him right now. They're playing Paul Goldschmidt at first base over him. They have Austin Wells. They have Estrada at backup catcher. But the dude can play the field too, and they're just like, nah, we're just gonna have you DH in the games. So just loving Ben Rice right now, loving the Uncle Ben.
Yeah, it's interesting though the way that the 2 first basemen there in New York are kind of different players, kind of feeding off of each other. I have Goldschmidt, who's a little bit more of an on-base machine, not really putting up much in the way of power numbers, but he's getting on base.
Yeah.
Ben Rice is 1 home run away from his total from last year already. He's just hitting the ball super hard. if you look at his Savant page, like you were saying, it's all red, all the way down it. And it's just his the thing that surprised me the most is his average hit rate is 96 miles per hour off the bat.
Yeah.
So that's just super impressive.
Yeah. No, dude's smoking the ball. 95.
Yeah, the
95
EVs are good.
Average exit velocity. It's insane right now. It's absolutely insane.
Everything looks very sustainable because his swinging strike rate is low, better than league average. I mean, his hard hit rates are good. His ground ball rate's a little higher than I would like right now, but if you're hitting the ball hard, that's fine. You can get away with it a little more. So I'd like to see his ground ball rate get back to where it was kind of last year in the majors when it was like more like 35%. That's the only thing that I can really say as a concern is that ground ball rate. But when you're hitting the ball like he is, I can't really second guess it too much.
Right. Yeah, and it's crazy too because I'm looking at it. The only two things in the blue are whiff rate and K rate, but then his walk rate is still 75%. 75th percentile right now. So it's like, take the whiff, but he's still getting on base.
Yeah, I echo what Ash was saying about it being sustainable. I think that's the most impressive part about this is that we knew that he had power. Yankees were fully well aware that he had that quote unquote light tower power, and he was a great fit for that right field at Yankee Stadium. But is the actual batting profile sustainable? And right now, it looks pretty good. It looks to be a success out of the Yankees org for that. I see that that Kenny mentioned here, and we got the comment highlighted that he compares players up and not down. So I'm going to put you on the spot here, Luca, with a real tough question. Do you think Anthony Volpe is Derek Jeter?
Oh, a little shade back at our other co-host that's not on tonight, Kenny.
Because it seems to be something shared. By some Yankee fans out here, and I just want to have your opinion on Anthony Volpe walking
just calling
in
the captain.
I don't. I know there's a little bit of sarcasm behind this, but I don't think anyone will ever replace Jeter, especially at shortstop. I think Aaron Judge definitely has the opportunity to supplant himself as one of the greatest Yankees of all time. Just with the trajectory that he's on. But to say Anthony Volpe is going to replace Derek Jeter, no. Maybe with the torpedo bat, who knows? But it's not there. It's not there. I'm sorry, Kenny.
All right, so in the humor of not razzing you too much, then, because I got to slip that one in there. We were discussing beforehand. There was a few other things we could talk about that in terms of Yankee successes, right? Some of the early returns off the offseason acquisitions. Peter mentioned Goldschmidt and Trent Grisham, who's on paternity, but he was still hitting home run after home run. You've got a little bit of guys that are being pieced together. I mean, look, Bellinger and Goldschmidt are on the older side, elder statesman side, but they've been able to contribute. Goldschmidt more than Bellinger, I would say, because Bellinger's bat has still been a little worrisome. But Trent Grisham's looked pretty strong, right? How are you feeling about some of these guys? You feel like they targeted some of the right people? You're worried about Bellinger getting phased out for one of these other guys in terms of playing time as the year goes on? What's your early thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, you look at Goldschmidt, and I mean, 2-3 years ago we were talking MVP candidate, him and Arenado at the same time. Again, I know he's an older player, but it's really hard to get rid of that ball skill. And he's always had that. He's always had that contact ability. And a lot of people were down on him, but first half of the year he struggled, and then he just shot out of nowhere in August, and he was hitting the ball really well. And I don't think a lot of people talked about that. And he's picking it up. He's picking it up well this year as well. What's odd is that he's batting in the leadoff spot sometimes. You don't look at Paul Goldschmidt as a leadoff hitter, but you need someone to turn the lineup over and get it started and get on base for Judge, and he's done a good job there. His defensive metrics aren't that great, but it's first base, and I'll take that L at first base. And then on the flip side, Bellinger, his bat hasn't really been there yet. But the fielding has been phenomenal from him. The fielding's been phenomenal. I think he's been playing a great center field. The bat's just not there yet. I think he'll figure it out. I think the last 2 years, that sample size has really proven that, he's not that one and done guy who won the MVP and then was batting below the Mendoza line the following year. So I think he'll figure it out. I think the short porch and right is going to help him out a lot. And it'll be fun to see his progression. Trent Grisham was actually part of the Juan Soto trade last year. He was just kind of this add-in. He's going to be our fourth outfielder, and I mean that's the role he's going to fill. I mean he's a great defender, great base runner, but by God, he is crushing the ball right now. Do I think it's sustainable? No, probably not. But it's really been great to see, and he's a great teammate. He's a really great guy, and you love to see it. The last pickup I want to talk about too is Devin Williams, and that has been probably the most frustrating out of all four of them. And of the four of them, I had the highest expectations for him, and it hasn't been there yet. So. As a Yankees fan, I'm hopeful that he can turn it around, get back to the closer that he was. But there are other options in the pen as well. So that's always the bright side there.
I will point out that I'm actually, as a neutral party, a little bit worried about Cody Bellinger and whether or not he can bounce back. Because if you guys remember in 2020 and 2021, when he was really bad with LA, one of the habits that he got into was kind of his whiff mentality at the plate.
Yeah.
If you look at his swinging strike rates that year, 2021, he had the worst swinging strike rate of his career at 14.2. And this year it's up there pretty high again at 13.5. Yeah. So he's not seeing the ball or something real well because his strikeout, he's not swinging the bat real well, making a lot of contact. So that's actually a really cause for concern. And I'm not sure that that Bellinger is going to be right the remainder of this year if he doesn't get that under control.
Yeah, no, chase rate is up. Chase rate's up. Whip rate is up. No, I agree, Ash. It's a level of concern. It's still early. So hopefully he figures it out. But yeah, no, there's definitely some concern.
Peter, you have any thoughts on Devin Williams, Cody Bellinger, any of the sort? I'm going to give you an opportunity to throw something in there.
I do. I have thoughts on Devin Williams. I was looking at his stats and another player on the Yankees that I'll mention shortly. In Devin Williams, in 8 innings of work, has a 7.88 ERA. He has struck out 8 guys and walked 7. It's not very good. That's not something you'd want from your closer. But I was looking at other Yankee pitchers to see if, what else they got going on over there. They have a guy who has a 0 ERA, has 13 strikeouts, and only 5 walks. And I don't know why they don't make this guy the closer. I'm sure you can figure out who I'm talking about. It's Luke Weaver. He's a stud, obviously with the exception of Aaron Judge because he signed that super long contract. He's not going anywhere. If there's anyone in the Yankees that could handpick, it would be him. I think he's a stud. I think he's the best pitcher you have on your team. And I don't know why they don't make him the closer.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you bring that up because Luke and I were talking off the air before we came on tonight about the Devin Williams trade. Obviously getting one of the elite closers of the last 5 to 6 years is kind of a no-brainer, and they really didn't give up much for him, to be honest. But it wasn't really an area of super need and super importance for them either because as Luke was mentioning, Luke Weaver was right there for them, and he's pitched pretty well. Of course, Kenny in the chat here says he's not worried about Williams at all. I do feel like he probably, rights the ship and ends up being the guy we all know Devin Williams to be. But interesting to hear the different takes is from the Yankee crowd.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if it's just Devin Williams is just so caught up on the NLDS from last year. Or was it the wild card? The wild card from last year. I don't know. I don't know if the Mets fans want to talk about that, but maybe he's still hung up on that. And,
was that Pete that hit the home run?
Yes,
that might have broken.
Yes,
yeah, I thought so.
Polar Bear went deep on him. Pete, Pete,
if I'm going to give you an honest answer, go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, if I'm going to give an honest answer here, because it'll sound like a joke if I say it, but because I have the little notation here. I bought the Edwin Diaz jersey when he sucked. Edwin Diaz struggled when he first got to New York, and he was supposed to be an elite closer, and he righted that ship. And we've touched on this show before. I don't know if it was last week or 2 weeks ago, but there's a difference to playing in New York when you're in a different market. Diaz came out of Seattle, Williams came out of Milwaukee. The media markets are night and day. And if I'm going to give you an honest opinion, I think it's the Edwin Diaz syndrome. I do think Williams is going to struggle this year. And a lot of people struggled their first year with the Mets. Carlos Beltran struggled on the batting side with the Mets and then turned in some amazing years. Lindor struggled a little bit his first time around with the Mets and then turned in MVP quality stuff. I anticipate Soto to be down most of this year before he settles into working here. And even though he's been with the Yankees, but it just seems to be something that happens. And it's not a hard and fast rule or something like that, but I'm a little bit less worried about Devin Williams. What I am confused about, and to the notion of what you guys were saying, some early save opportunities that didn't go to Williams went to Fernando Cruz. And, Ash touched on the fact that it wasn't necessarily a huge need for them to get Devin Williams. All that math adds up to me is that for some reason, the Yankees don't like Luke Weaver as much as we like Luke Weaver. And what I don't get is why. Because I think Peter's right. I think Ash is right. I think Luke's right. You guys are right. Luke Weaver is a candidate. This guy could actually close for the Yankees. They made a move to get a different guy. And then when an opportunity came up that guy faltered, they still went in direction of Fernando Cruz, who is not, lights out. I mean, he's pitched fine, but he's not the guy that I'm like, oh, yeah, you should give it to him over Luke Weaver. So it's weird for me to watch the organization and one that's prestigious and generally knows what the hell they're doing move in a way that seems to be anti-Luke Weaver. And I do not understand why.
Yeah, and we have seen it plenty of times in the past where pitchers who were dominant in other places come to either of the New Yorks and then really struggled. I mean, my mind immediately goes back to Javi Vasquez, if you remember him. I mean, he was a Cy Young caliber pitcher in Montreal, goes to the Yankees and just implodes, and they get rid of him in 1 year. And then he goes back to being himself in other places after that, whether it be the White Sox or even in Atlanta in 2009. He was, unbeatable in Atlanta. I think he had a sub-3 ERA in Atlanta in 2009. So, and that's just another example that came to my mind right away when I think about pitchers who get to New York and then just blow up. So,
yeah. I think to the comment of the Luke Weaver, I think all Lukes deserve a little bit more love. That's just in my opinion. But the other name that comes to mind is Sonny Gray. Right, came over from the A's, just was absolutely atrocious when he started pitching in the Bronx, and then goes to Cincinnati and starts lighting it up again. And Ram, you're right. The New York market is different, and I hate to say this, but the New York market in the past for the Bronx has been different than it is in Queens. I mean, there is so much more pressure in the Bronx than there is in Queens. With the amount of success that the Yankees franchise has had versus the Mets, it can be daunting. And I know there's been a lot of players who have talked about how difficult it is to make that move to the Bronx. So it's a good point.
And what I find a little bit funny is that we kind of sound doom and gloom about the Yankees right now, but as of today, they're in first place in the American League East. So not all clouds out there.
Division. I still think they're going to win the division.
Yeah, you've been saying that pretty nonstop, Peter.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Ryan.
Yeah, he picked them in the beginning. I'll swing to Kenny's comments there too. Two of them. One, he mentioned that Williams was unavailable the day that Cruz got saves. I was more targeting the fact. I know Williams was unavailable. I was more concerned about Weaver's availability, because I'm saying that it should have been Weaver, not Cruz, in my opinion, that got those opportunities. But to his previous comment, you could bring that one up, Ash, where he says Bellinger sucks. We don't have a rotation that's good. It's not going to matter that Williams is below par. I'm going to throw something else your way, Luke, because we had talked about this. If we're talking about we did kind of get doom and gloomy. Jazz Chisholm was a guy that I was really high on going into this season, and I feel that he hasn't hit exactly in the way that I've expected him to. Do you attribute some of it to him just being not ready for a hot streak yet, that he'll be fine? Do you think adjusting defensively has kind of messed with his head a little bit? Like, are we stocked down on Jazz, or should we just steady the ship and not have to worry? How do you feel?
It's like it's night and day. It's night and day with him too, because it's, you know, he's hit 7 home runs, but he's batting 165. His barrel rate is 17%, but his whiff rate is 34%. I mean, there are times where he looks so energized, and it helps the team. And like one of the things I want to talk about too with him is, you know, it's very clear that he's a very emotional player, right? And it's interesting with emotional players, because when they're on their highs, they can be such a great fire starter for the teams. But when they're down, I mean, can a player like that bring the rest of the team down, right? You know, there was an incident over the weekend where he was arguing balls and strikes, and he got kicked out of the game, and then, you know, was suspended one game. You know, what impact does that have? Does that have on the team? Or when he hits a home run, it's like the whole world stops, and like, you know, it's the greatest thing ever. It's those highs and lows that can really impact the team. But I was saying to Ash before the show started, he's been great. He's been great in the field. I know it's, you know, a little bit of small sample size, but he's his field run value is at 2, which is 95th percentile for second basemen right now. So it looks like the move from third base back to second base has really helped him out. He's a great base runner. He's just got to see the ball better. He's got to see the ball better. I mean, the power's there. He's just got to make better contact. But I'll turn to Peter. I mean, Peter, do you like Jazz?
I do like Jazz. I am a little bit concerned about the strikeouts, though. He has 33 strikeouts for second in the AL. But his counting stats are all good. He's 4th in home runs in the AL, and he's 10th in RBIs. So, I mean, his number stats are there. A lot of that had to do with he had a good start to the year. But I think he'll balance it out. Like you said, he's a very emotional player. And I really liked the Yankees traded for him last year. I thought that that's the type of player that the Yankees have shied away from in the past. But I think that his energy and the type of player he is really helped them get to where they got last year. And if it worked last year, I don't see any reason why it can't work again.
Yeah.
But I do have a question for you. And I want to preface this question with, I don't actually think it is, and I do think it would be a long time before it actually ever does. But I've never heard it from a Yankee fan's perspective. You start to hear things in the media, and a lot of it's like the WFAN guys who just like to create headlines, and I've heard murmurings from Mets fans talking about it. Do you think New York can ever actually become a Mets town? Is it something you're like think could happen or potentially worried about?
Worried about? No. I don't live in the tri-state area, so I don't really have a good temperature for New York right now. But
MLB needs to put a third team in New York. I'm not even joking about that. I mean, how many soccer teams are in London? It's the same thing, guys.
Just because California has like 5 teams does not. I don't think. I think the one thing you can get Yankees and Met fans to agree on is that there shouldn't be a third team in New York.
No. I think we're good. I mean, maybe if we did get a third team, we could like combine forces and just hate on that third team together as Yankees and Mets fans together.
I mean, they would just put it in New Jersey and call them New York. So
yeah. I mean, that's just the Jets and Giants for you. But I mean, to answer your question, I think with how historical the franchise is, with all of the national coverage on the Yankees, I just find it really hard that it would become a Mets town. But all the power to Steve Cohen for, spending the money and trying, really building up the Mets hype. I see it. I definitely see it, but I just don't see them surpassing the Yankees.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. I just wanted to hear it from a Yankee perspective because I haven't before.
Yeah. No, I know you like Jazz. It's cool.
Ash, how do you feel about Jazz so far? What's your take on it? Are you in panic mode about him, or do you feel like he's this is as advertised? What's your thoughts?
I like Jazz. He's getting me some points in my fantasy league, so yeah, I'm all right with him.
All right.
I love Jazz, but I mean, I also, this is where my bias will show. Moments that I can be honest about is that, like, I'm a Caribbean guy and like I love emotional Caribbean players. Yeah, so for me, I roll with the punches there. I love guys who are emotional about baseball, and that extends to the guys who pimp home runs, the guys who, like, I'll throw this one of the Yankees fans' way. I was a Java Chamberlain guy. I love the I
I
love the
was
Java
too.
Chamberlain
They
experience.
screwed him
I
up.
was I was very upset as a Mets fan to watch them get such a guy like Java Chamberlain and then screw that up for me. I love Java Chamberlain. I know the Yankees have a reputation of being anti-fun because they're historical and they have all the, the heavy. No, man, let the guy have fun. But I love Jazz. I do think that culturally it's an interesting fit for the Yankees because, like, we've got a tough one, and I'll address what Kenny says there in a second. But it's a tough one because when an emotional player has a bad stretch, sometimes you see it in other parts of the play, and sometimes it gets magnified a little bit more because if a guy's going 0 for a couple days over and he's arguing balls and strikes, it's real easy for people to say, listen, shut up, sit down, play the game the right way, that type of stuff. So you do get a little bit more eyes on you when you're an emotional guy when it comes to baseball, and I think that's tough. But swinging around to what Kenny said, because I want to win 4 World Series in 5 years, then New York City will be a Mets town. So, addressing things that have happened in the last 25 years or so when some of the people who are listening to us were born, in terms of the way things are now, I don't think that New York will be a Mets town, but there is a building Mets culture for a couple of reasons. One is that, the Mets are fun and stupid, and a lot of people like when things are fun and dumb. I mean, we had a team last year that we've talked about this ad nauseum, but there was a goddamn grimace seat in City Field spray painted purple. They had
Still
Hawk
there.
Tua throwing out the first pitch. And yeah, so the grimace seat is still there, right? This is the thing where, like, the Mets are fun in their own way, and that whimsy can attract people because, again, in contrast, the Yankees are the historical, staunch, like, they just allowed facial hair. They just decided to allow facial hair, for Christ's sake. They have always been
that's interesting because a lot of people think the facial hair thing has always been there, and it hasn't. It came in the late 70s with George Steinbrenner because there's pictures of plenty of guys before that with beards. So, sorry, I didn't mean to jump in. I just had to bring it to dispel one of the myths that the facial hair policy has always been there. So,
but there's one more thing. There's one more thing about the facial hair thing. You were always allowed to have a mustache, but you couldn't have a beard.
Heaven forbid a beard.
Yeah. I got stuff on my face, and in my chin. That's too far. But the funny thing over the last 5 or 6 years is Giancarlo Stanton never really looked like he had facial hair, but always had the soul patch on his chin, and no one ever said anything about it.
It's true. Since the days of him being Mike Stanton, he's had this as a Marlins guy, and I have a very fun thoughts about Mike and Giancarlo Stanton, where I feel like he knows me personally because I screamed Mike and heckled him for about 7 innings straight once when he was with the Marlins. But it was great. He dropped the ball in right field, and all you could hear is just some idiot Caribbean guy, me, in the Shade Bridge area, just screaming, "Mike, I'm in your head, Mike!" But in terms of New York culture,
in the crowd there.
There are a few people who know me personally can attest to that story because when he dropped the ball, there were a few sections that had believed that it was my fault, and I was very proud of that. But you were talking Mets town, Yankees town. I'll tell you about something that hasn't changed, and I'll talk about it for a minute. This is a Knicks town. The Brooklyn Nets are not an actual basketball team, and
how'd John Starks do the other day?
Just as good as Patrick Ewing did, since Kenny's going to ask too about that. But I'll touch on real quick that the Knicks are in a series where they're now 1-1 against the Detroit Pistons. I mentioned this in the Substack when I talked about a preview for the Knicks. I did not want to face the Pistons. They are the young guns. They are doing very well. The split at home is a big thing for the Pistons. We should have hopefully taken both games. Officiating was a little bit tough. And I know that you guys aren't really basketball guys, so I'm going to throw it back in terms of NBA basketball these days. So I'm going to throw it, since we've got Luke here, to something that I know he can talk about while we're on the New York Power Hour. And he's probably itching to talk about is hockey, because I know, at least even if Peter and I don't hockey as much, I know Ash does too. So we've got the Rangers to work with here in terms of the Rangers. There's some news coming out on both ways. They fired their coach. They extended a GM that I've been told is not the most popular man going on here, right? And this Rangers coach firing happened after a year of the President's Trophy and a really, really strong performance, and they turn around and miss the playoffs completely. You know, they're not exactly looking like the Devils, where they're down 2-0 in their series, but they did miss the playoffs. So I'll give you a few minutes here to talk about the Rangers. What's on the top of your head when it comes to New York hockey?
Yeah, I think me wanting to talk hockey is definitely an overstatement, because I do not want to talk about the New York Rangers right now.
What about the Islanders? No,
I don't want to talk about. No, I don't think anyone wants to talk about the Islanders. No one wants to go out to Long Island.
fish sticks.
You know, I was talking to Ash before the show too, and you know, I'll make a confession here. I think I've watched one Rangers game since New Year's, and I was sitting at home. It was about 3 or 4 weeks ago. We're kind of on the fence on a playoff spot. They're playing the Devils. It's 0-0. I'm like, all right, I'll turn the game on. Turn the game on. 2 minutes. They let up 2 goals. I'm like, yeah, I'm done. I'm done with this season. It's over. I've had enough of this team, and I don't know what it is. I can try and pinpoint what it is. They have a ton of talent, but the problem is that you move around so many players. You get rid of so many players that you impact the chemistry of the team. You know, I talked before about baseball being a team sport and one player not really making or breaking a team, and it's really the same. It's the same thing in NHL hockey. You can bring a superstar to a team, but if you don't have the right players around them, your team's not going to be successful. You know, the NBA is a little different. You can bring that superstar guy in. He can take over for a quarter and bring your team to victory. But the NHL, it's so effective to have good chemistry with your players. And what Chris Drury has been doing over the last few years is just saying, if you can't perform at the level that I need you to perform at, you're gone. And that's regardless of what you can contribute to the locker room. And you can see it. You can see it in the coaching as well. I mean, you've gone through 3 coaches in the last 4 years. You know, David Quinn was kind of a sacrificial lamb. Was stuck with a team that was rebuilding, and the team wasn't really great. I think he's a phenomenal coach. I think he does a great job developing players. The U.S. actually recognizes him as a great coach. I know he was on the bench for the Four Nations, tournament. Gerard Gallant had his issues in the locker room, but he had a ton of success in Vegas. He had a ton of success in beforehand. And same thing with Peter Laviolette. I mean, one of the greatest U.S. coaches of all time, and he's fired after 2 seasons, and you don't make the playoffs. So I don't know if there's not enough patience from the front office here, and it can really impact what's going on in the locker room. And you can definitely see the strife, especially in the media now, with guys talking about being very tepid about Laviolette's firing. But there's hope for the team. I mean, there's a ton of talent there. Artemi Panarin is one of the best hockey players in the world right now. You have him for next year, and then he becomes a free agent again. You still have Mika Zibanejad. You still have Adam Fox, who's one of the best defensemen in the league. You have Igor Shesterkin signed till the end of days. And if he can get his head right, he's one of the top goaltenders in the league. They got to figure out the chemistry. And it starts with Chris Drury. And, I'll give John credit again here. I was texting him earlier about the extension, and I'm like, for a guy who had shown so much leadership as a player, it's just so surprising that he just doesn't have a gauge for what the locker room needs to look like. And he texted me back, and he was like, I don't think he's actually shown good leadership throughout his time in the NHL. I mean, he was captain of the Rangers at one point, never won a Stanley Cup, never really had a ton of success when he was with the Sabres. I don't know if James Dolan is just not seeing that with Chris Drury, and just keeping him along for the ride. And I know a lot of Knicks fans have issues with James Dolan, but Rangers fans have not had issues with James Dolan. And I think the big difference there, and we could spend so much time talking about James Dolan, but I think the big difference is that he's always very hands off with the Rangers, and he just chokes the Knicks to death. But I'm glad the Knicks have finally gotten the front office together that they really need. You go back to the Jackson years of just. It's just funny being in New York and listening to New York media. I mean, the word sabotage is used when they talk about the Phil Jackson years with the Knicks, and that just speaks volumes of just how poorly the Knicks have been run. But it's glad to see that they've finally gotten the right mix there. I'm happy. I'm definitely happy to see the success that the Knicks are seeing.
Yeah, for me as somebody that, I will admit my interests have waned between the Knicks and the Rangers, but I still love both of those teams. James Dolan is an absolute menace. I can't stand him. But going with the Rangers, I think you hit the nail on the head. Chris Drury's just kind of killed the chemistry. There were reports that came out that the entire locker room was really angry when they traded Gaudreau away. Maybe not a player that's going to light up on the score sheet, but the locker room really loved him. And they got rid of him. And, it's just really a shame, as somebody that, like I said, Wayne's the interest does wane, but I still am a Rangers fan. It's like they have to do something quickly because it's really starting to, I feel like we're turning into Cowboys fans. We're talking about how great the Rangers are and all the success, but we don't have any. Haven't won since 94, Like it's some.
Hey, but you started the streak for America. The reason I say that is Canada has not won the Stanley Cup since '93.
Yeah.
So the Rangers started the Cup streak for America. So thank you to the New York Rangers.
We're the most.
I wasn't alive to see it.
We're the most
funny about
team.
that.
What do you want? What do you want? Red, white, and blue.
No, but about that 90s thing is really funny because I'll give you a factoid because I looked up some stuff because I needed to learn since I basically only hockey with the Leafs. So the Rangers are the fourth team to miss the playoffs this season after winning the President's Trophy. Right? Fourth team to – I'll talk about that one day when we're not on the New York Hour. But the fourth team to miss the playoffs the season after winning the President's Trophy. 14-15 Bruins, 07-08 Sabres, and the 92-93 Rangers. And you mentioned what just happened in 94. And so it's just one of those things where, like, as Luke is pointing out, there's some talent there, and they might be able to figure some interesting things out in that Rangers organization. At the end of the day, the guy was, 94, 59, and 11, it says. That's a pretty solid record. I do think that just objectively looking at that, you could have given that guy a little more leash when it comes to Laviolette. So it does seem more like a scapegoat firing, which we see a lot of in New York. We saw it a lot with Dolan with the Knicks. Somebody's got to go. Somebody's got to be fired. And sometimes it was the wrong guy. And we're lucky the Knicks were able to keep the right guys together now. But Dolan had a quick trigger on that kind of stuff, which you think sometimes is a good thing. But it can be problematic. I think it was a good point in talking about chemistry in the locker room there. You're 100% right.
Yeah, and I'll throw this out too. I think it's really been an epidemic in the NHL. I know Ash, you've seen it too. Teams are so quick to fire head coaches. nowadays, and it's been a huge revolving door. So I'm not sure if it's just a symptomatic of James Dolan being James Dolan, or if it's a symptom of NHL, just the NHL just cycling through coaches real quick.
Yeah, and you mentioned Panarin only having one more year on his deal, so it'll be an interesting offseason to see if they engage him on an extension, because in the NHL you can't do it until you're 1 year away from free agency.
I'm hopeful they do it. I think it's I've heard analysts say it's one of the best free agent signings of all time. The guy has lived way beyond his contract, and the way the salary cap has increased. I mean, how much he makes is not even comparable to what he contributes to the team. So I'm hopeful they bring him back, and he's again, we talk about locker room guys. I mean, he is a phenomenal guy in the locker room as well.
Yeah, and the saddest part to me about this year with the Rangers and the Islanders both being bad is the NHL is a better league when you have at least one of those teams doing well and competing. Just like when the NBA is always better when the Knicks are good. That always helps the league and the profile of the league. I think the same with the NHL, and particularly with the Rangers because of the mystique of the Garden, the Mecca. I mean, it's just a magical place, and I love to see the Rangers doing well there. But not only because of the league's prestige takes a hit when the Rangers are not good, but we would be remiss to mention that Sam Rosen in his final season was calling such a bad team this year. I know I've called him one of the best play-by-play announcers in all of sports, not just in the NHL. I think that he did a tremendous job, and to see him go out with such a poor team was a shame.
I agree. It actually makes me very sad. I watched a lot of Rangers games as a kid, and it's a power play goal. That always makes me smile. But I do like the guy that got to replace him, Kenny Albert. So I do think the trend of good Rangers announcers is going to continue.
Yeah, again, Kenny Albert's a familiar name in New York. Ranger. I think he did the Rangers play-by-play on the radio. I would have preferred they went down LaGreca, but that's just me.
Well, I think that we've kind of hit on all the sports scene up there so far tonight, guys, and we're right at our hour mark. So I'll just kind of throw it around the room for our final takes of the night. And I'll start with you, Peter. Just go ahead and give us your final take of the night that you want to give. What have in the last week? What have kind of been things you've taken away, and what are you looking forward to over the next week?
The thing that I'm looking forward to in the next week is to just see if the Mets pitching is going to continue at a similar level, because obviously there's going to be some sort of regression. They're not going to keep up this 117 win pace. But with everyone's talk in the offseason was how great the lineup was and how bad the pitching was going to be. And while the bat has picked up in these last couple of games, it's been pitching all the way. So are we going, that's the big question. Is the pitching going to regress to what we saw, what we thought they were going to be, or are they going to stay around the mark they are now? And if they stay that the way, it's going to be a really fun year in Queens.
Luke, what do you got for us? What's your takeaway from the past week, and what are you looking forward to over the next week ahead?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to some more playoff hockey. I know we were talking before the show. This is the first year in a couple of years just to be able to watch some hockey and not have to stress. I can't say this enough. There's nothing like playoff hockey. I mean, we talked about it before. I mean, a 4-goal lead means absolutely nothing. So you can always be engaged in the games. Before we sign off, I did want to ask you guys, have you guys watched any good Hallmark movies recently?
No.
No? Well, I watched one recently. I
love around Christmas time, Luke. I love around Christmas time. I get right into the spirit.
I watched one recently called "Love Comes Softly." It was pretty good. It was pretty good. Thoroughly enjoyed it. Really enjoyed my research, and Yeah, no, those are my thoughts.
What do you got for us, Ram?
Peter went practical, so I'm not. Let's go with the fact that the Mets are in a 117 win pace. And when do we start talking about the fact that the best record in Mets history was 108 wins for the 1986 World Series winning team? I'm not talking about the World Series, but there is something, man. 117 wins. Could this be the winningest Mets team of all time? And on paper, might it be the best team that we've ever seen for the Mets? For the Mets. Obviously, it's way too early to have that conversation, but as every week goes by, I'm going to start thinking about it. If they can keep up close to this pace, are we going to see the winningest Mets team of all time? Have we built a core that has somehow figured something out?
Well, in the chat, Kenny says no. So
David Stearns, we trust.
the jealous Yankee fan persists.
Stearns we trust.
My final thoughts tonight are, I'm glad to see that both teams are doing well, even though Yankee fans say they aren't, but they're in first place. So I think it's cool for the league to have both of those teams competing in their divisions, and to see where they are right now. And I think that things are going to improve in the Bronx. I actually have been really high on the Mets since day one. I know some of the outlets were predicting them to finish as low as third in the division. I thought that was kind of ludicrous all along. I thought their pitching was going to be better than expected by some of those prognosticators all along. So I think that the Mets are going to win this division. Initially, I said the Phillies in the preseason, but as things have progressed, I do think that the Mets are going to end up winning this division. I'm not sure if they'll get to 109 wins or not, but I think this is a really good team. I'm surprised that none of you mentioned the NFL draft coming up. I know Peter is a diehard Jets fan. I'm not sure what your team is, Luke. I apologize.
Detroit Lions.
That's right. So you abandoned your city.
Yep.
When it comes to football. So
Yep. I got sick and tired of Eli Manning beating Tom Brady, and I was like, let's jump ship and take on the 0-16 Detroit Lions. It can't get worse. It can't get worse than 0-16.
So I am disappointed that nobody brought up football, but it'll be interesting to see how the drafts go tomorrow night. I believe night one is tomorrow night. I typically don't watch. I just wait till it's over and read the recaps. So that's why I'm not even 100% sure that it starts tomorrow. But
it does start tomorrow. But I promise you, next week you'll hear about it. There's going to be something from the Jets and Giants to talk about after tomorrow night. We don't know what it is.
They will either love it or hate it.
Do
we have to talk about the Jets? Do we have to? Please, no. God, no.
And we made Luke talk about the Rangers, so we're gonna have to talk about the Jets. I'll jump in and talk about the ever loving and everlasting dumpster fire that is our New York Jets.
Well, I just want to thank everybody for watching the show tonight. Make sure you hit that like button on the video here. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you're not already, and turn those notifications on so you know when we're going live in the future. We are having our best damn baseball show tomorrow night at 10 o'clock. And joining us on the broadcast tomorrow night will be from the Scout the Stat Lines, Ross Jensen, there to answer all of our questions about prospects and different things around the league. So really looking forward to having him there. If you're new to the channel, just joining it for the New York stuff, check us out tomorrow night as we talk a little bit more about the world of baseball specifically. I'm really looking forward to that episode of the Best Damn Baseball Show here on the channel. And then I know a couple times Ram mentioned our Substack. We go in a little deeper on some topics on the Substack. There is a link on the YouTube page to our Substack, which is just $30 a year. If you want to go month to month, you can do it for $3 a month, but $30 a year is kind of a no-brainer in my opinion. So it's not constantly drawing out of your bank account every month. Not something you have to worry about for another year. So pretty inexpensive for some content, added content to the channel with the Substack. Appreciate you guys, and we will see you again next week on Wednesday night. Thank you all, and have a good night.